A billionaire once sat across the table from my guest today and told him the truth. He said, I chose poorly. I chose work and self over family and civics. I've been trying to make up for that ever since. He's 65 years old now at the time that he said that. And his own kids were already in their 30s with families of their own. That conversation really changed how Jeremie thinks about success, what it means to him. He's built and sold multiple companies. He's also raised a family the whole way through all of that. We'll be talking about that. And he's found out that he doesn't want to lose himself in that rat race either with poor health and all. And we're going to go over some of his stories. So if you're running a business and raising kids at the same time, you keep telling yourself you'll get healthier when things slow down. It's never going to. There's always something else. Schedule's full packed, and that's just the way it is. And lots of men are hoping that things will slow down, and they just don't. Welcome to Driven for Health podcast, episode 133. I'm Coach Brian Piranha, and we have Jeremie here today. Welcome. Let's start off with a really good, what do we need these guys to listen into for our conversation today?
Thanks for having me out, Brian. I think if I were to put it on sort of one sentence, I would say that physical health, mental health, family health is really, these are common denominators for success and for high performance individuals, plain and simple.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. And without that, then you just aren't going to have the sheer vast amount of productivity and opportunity that you think you should at this. So you have a story that we talked about with some of the catalysts for you to take care of yourself before we get into all the business stuff. But let's start there so that the guys can identify you were in their bucket and then you worked out of it by prioritizing your own health.
Sorry, I think that we just had a little blip.
I think so. All right.
I lost you halfway through the question.
No worries. I'll edit this out. The magic of,
like, whoa,
back-end editing. Yep. So you had your own story of where you were working, getting caught up in it, and someone really close and special to you called you out on it, and you took it as a really good challenge to start taking better care of yourself. Let's jump in there so that the guys listening in can really identify with, you lived it.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start, way back at the beginning. So first and foremost, met my wife, my now wife. She is the special young woman who at the time helped to kick me into gear. But my wife and I met when I was a grad student and she was an undergrad student. We were both studying in Japan, interestingly enough. And
very cool.
We met, fell in love, and it's almost 30 years ago now, and we're still together. Thankfully, she's stuck with me. But when I finished, grad school, I came back to the States and I went to work for Goldman Sachs. A dream of mine for a long time was to go work at Goldman. And I had an absolutely fabulous experience. People ask me all the time, what's the greatest thing about Goldman? I say there are many great things about Goldman, but if you ever have a chance to work at Goldman, you should. You just absolutely should.
Yeah, right.
But so I joined Goldman. I was 25 years old when I joined Goldman, and I had just, finished life as a grad student. My wife and I were engaged at the time. I was in really good physical shape. At the time, I was probably 218 pounds and like 8% body fat.
Yeah,
big guy.
6'2".
Too. So,
okay.
6'2".
So yeah, he carries that weight well.
So pretty thick and just in really good shape. And that was very important to me. Physical health has always been important to me. And so with that as the backdrop, started working like a dog, 60, 70, 80, 90 hours a week, doing what you do, loving every minute of it, having a great time. But my wife and I also started having a family pretty early. And so in my few years at Goldman Sachs, I went from, 217, 18, super healthy, to having a child, and to being about 240 and exceptionally unhealthy. And the reasons why were pretty clear and pretty obvious. I think most of us go through this phase as hardworking men and women. We have to prioritize, right? And so at the time, I was prioritizing my career and trying to figure out how I was going to do what I was going to do, trying to prioritize the time that we had with our young baby, and trying to prioritize time with my wife. And there wasn't much time left over for me. And so I was eating my stress, not burning my stress. And interestingly enough, at the same time as I was doing the Goldman thing, I was also thinking about what I wanted to do with the rest of my life and the rest of my career. So without giving you too much of a boring background, I grew up writing software and programming and on the side and having a great time with it. I studied finance and economics in school, but I've always loved computer science, always loved engineering,
Hmm.
always wanted to build software companies. So one of the reasons I was at Goldman actually is because I wanted to find some really good ideas for building software for financial services companies.
Yeah.
What better
What
place to
better
go?
way to do it than
Yeah.
there?
So fast forward to the end to 2003, I made the decision to leave the firm and start my first software company, which at the time we had one child. We were pregnant with a second. And here
Yeah.
I go off on the startup
That
adventure
was
of a
like
life.
me. I started my first business with my son was due in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
My wife
Yeah.
is, weren't you supposed to do this
What
in
are you doing?
January, February?
Yeah.
Like, we got to get ahead of it was a gym. So we got to get ahead of the New Year's rush, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like,
When
it was,
opportunity knocks, you have
yeah,
to go take it.
yeah,
And so,
crazy.
I was in that same boat. And so, pregnant with the second, have the first, I'm like, yeah, let's leave this fabulous career at Goldman and go start a software company because it's what I need to do. It's what I'm here to do. And that didn't help my health either, obviously.
No,
So
no.
to cut this sort of like bring it all together, I ended up in a situation where, by the time I was 28 and a half, almost 29 years old, I was super out of shape. I was feeling terrible about myself and
Right.
really, really stressed, eating worse and worse every day, kept gaining weight. And I remember I sat down with my wife one night and this is just after our second child was born. And I just started complaining. I was like, I'm just getting bigger and this is gross. And I feel so terrible, blah, blah, blah. And she looked at me and she knows exactly how to push all the right buttons in me. And she said,
Right.
yeah, well, you know what? I gave up. You're done. You're going to be like 400 pounds and die at age 50. It's going to be terrible. You may
Wow.
as well just give up now, which of course she knows me well enough to know that's exactly the thing to say to spark the fire
Right.
inside.
Right.
And so I said, okay, well, good point. Good point. I will show you. And, literally the
Challenge
next day,
accepted.
away I went. So on January 1st of 2004, I weighed 240 pounds. And by September 1st of 2004, I weighed 173 pounds
Yeah.
and started competing as a triathlete that very same year in semi-professional triathlons across the country. So,
That's excellent.
she helped me realize and remember that, look, you have to find whatever form of balance you can in your life, whenever you can, however you can, with the people that you love, and they have to be
Right.
part of it. And sometimes you got to get, dragged, kicking and screaming
Sometimes, yeah, there has to
into
be an
finding that balance.
intervention
But yeah, but
sometimes,
that
yeah.
that was what it was. And so that for me, that defined really from that point forward. It's like, okay, how do I think about my career and my personal life and my family life and my civic life in buckets, and how do I start planning appropriately? And so, really from that point forward, I've always dealt with my life and every single day, looking at it from these four buckets, like family,
Right.
work, civic, and self. That's what drives me, and I try to figure out ways to make sure I'm able to give in each of those four categories every single day.
Right. That's awesome. That's awesome. Now let's just touch a little bit on what were some of the pathways that you chose and had found to basically move more and be in a calorie deficit to lose weight. And then we'll move on to those buckets and how
For
you're
sure.
doing it at a higher level.
Yeah, absolutely. So then that is the right place to start because at the end of the day, obviously it matters what you put into your body, but if you're trying
Right.
to lose weight, you just need to make sure you're putting in a lot less than you're actually burning, right?
Right.
Friends always joke, the weight is lost and gained in the kitchen, and it's totally true.
Uh-huh.
And so for me, right, the way that I sort of structured my path toward getting back into good physical shape was I said, look, what is my caloric needs? And so to do that, I didn't just sort of like look at the general stuff you might find on the internet. I went and I
Hmm.
got a full like DEXA scan, a full body workup. I went and said, I'm going to figure out
Right.
exactly where I'm at, what my status is, so
Right.
I can target the parts of my body that need the most work without getting hurt because I didn't have time to get injured, right?
Yeah.
I'm running a growing
No.
software company. I've got kids and you
You
cannot
got a
afford to get hurt.
sliver of time and it has to be effective and efficient.
Exactly right. And so then we said, great, well, here's where I'm at, establish that baseline, everything from VO2 max to body fat composition and body composition, structurally, everything else. And say, great, now for me to sort of optimize my 1 hour and 15 minutes a day, I'm going to get working on myself.
Right.
How do I do that? And so then I put together a plan and that's what I did. And so for me, that was a combination of cardiovascular work, working up into the point where ultimately I do ultra marathons. And so, I went from doing very
Hmm.
sedentary stuff very slowly, but surely worked my way into a position where I could run
Right.
a mile and then 3 miles and then 5 miles and then 10 miles. And same thing with biking and same thing with swimming. But I also integrated, physical weight training into the mix very, very early as we need to, whether we're 20
Right.
or 50 or 70. and was just very methodical about how I approached my daily workout. And I also am a big fan of this thing I heard. I read this probably originally in the early 2000s, probably in Freakonomics. Great book. If
Oh yeah, right. I
anyone's ever read it.
remember that.
Yeah, good times. And talk about temptation bundling. Maybe it wasn't in the book, but it might have been in the early podcast. I can't remember, but basically have to give credit where credit's due to this notion of temptation bundling. And so I also started finding ways to temptation bundle into my workout times. So my trainer, if I wanted to watch a show, well, I would say I can only watch this show if I'm working out. If I want to read this book, I'm going to read this fun fiction while I'm working out. And yes, it doesn't optimize the workout, but sometimes, especially when you're losing weight, sometimes you just need low fat, low impact fat burning.
I will definitely agree. One thing, my son, he's 17, Levi, or 16. He challenged me to a marathon. I hadn't run a marathon in a couple of years. So it's like 2008 was the last one I ran, 12 maybe. 50 mile too. Cool. I went in triathlons after that, but he challenged me, said, all right, challenge accepted. Finally in January started. And then I've been having some injuries here, getting back into the running game. I had gotten injured playing in the snow on a sled riding hill. My middle two boys, they would not let me up the hill. They were just tackling me and dragging me down and all that. So tons of fun. But 20 minutes later, I went to go run and hide, and we were playing hide and seek or something. And then pop, my glute hurts. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I basically didn't run at all in February, March, but I figured out to bike. I ended up buying a spinning bike, and then I set it up and I created a bed slat desk that fit over top of the bike. And I will ride 1 to 2 hours most days, zone 2. It's not like the best spinning Peloton workout or something, but my heart rate's 120, 130. I'm able to get work done and be able to optimize that time, because there's absolutely no way. Since I started biking, I've biked February to July, 7,000 minutes, over 7,000 minutes. There's no way I would have been able to do that in my schedule if I had to go out on the road or, ride in a class or any of that stuff. It just wouldn't work with 4 kids business. It's just, there's always demand. So figuring out that, that temptation stacking or optimal ways to do it is so essential. Or even say the walking treadmill while you're doing maybe lower quality work, not lower quality, but lower mental load work.
For sure.
That's excellent.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, to this day, so I try to schedule calls and meetings and things around times where I know, okay, I can take a walk in the woods during this hour because I'm a semi-active participant for this one. And obviously, and there's all kinds of great scientific research too that shows we are stimulated when we're walking, we're moving, not at a crazy pace, but at a healthy pace. And like, it actually leads to more creativity. And it's great. Like, we should all do a heck of a lot more of it.
1,000% agreed. I do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Love it.
So the journey's always a fun one. And then, as you're thinking about how do you find your way back into health and or maintaining that health while balancing everything else, for me, that's where the framework around defining my time for family, work, civic, and self really came to bear. That being said, though, what works for one person never works for the group, right? And so, I have 4 kids. Over time, we had more kids, and my wife and I have had to figure out, like every couple has to figure out, who's going to do what, who's going to sacrifice what, who is going to be able to do what, when, where, and how in their own personal journey as well.
And I imagine there is give and take. There has to be. It can't just be. We can't fall into these societal roles of the 1950s or something. Like, well, my wife always cooks dinner. Like, unfortunately, I run into so many guys that they don't know how to cook at all, and I start to get them to take responsibility or go into the kitchen while things go help chop vegetables and learn how to put food together. And it ends up enhancing their relationship, and also takes that burden off their spouse to always have to cook. Like, guys, you need to be able to cook at least some food more than just boiling pasta and calling that dinner, like, for the love.
And open up a can of vegetables or whatever. Yeah. No, absolutely. You're right. But it is tough to find that. It is tough to sort of figure out where you fit. Like in my case, I'm kind of not allowed in the kitchen. Mostly. I mean, I'm happy to jump in there and do stuff here and there. But as all my kids, I'm going to tell you, like, it's not my biggest strength. It's not something I spend enough time doing to be really great at it.
Right.
And so, and I always count myself lucky. My wife she and I, we have a few rules for our family. One of the rules we've always had from day one is we will eat dinner together every single night of the week.
Beautiful.
With the asterisk being that except when dad has to travel. But if mom
Right.
is here, the kids were here eating every single night together, even when
Right.
I was
Right.
traveling a lot
Huge.
during their younger years. But even when I was traveling a lot, I was like, I'm going to be home 5 nights a week for dinner. That's
Yeah.
what's going to happen.
I
And
love
so
that.
as a result, like what that usually meant is I'd be, coming back in from a meeting, or I was shooting in from out of town, or coming in coming out to the house from the city, from work on the train or whatever. And I'd get in first thing you walk in the house, you sit down 6:15, we have dinner as a family. And that
Yeah.
was
That's
so
awesome.
important.
Yeah. Yeah.
So interestingly enough, I bring it up because my wife was able to share like the thing of cooking with our children. And to this
Hmm.
day, all of our children are really good and they're very handy in the kitchen. And one of the things they love doing for mom and sometimes for me, especially on Mother's Days and Father's Days and holidays like this, that is
Yeah.
actually make really fabulous meals for us, as a way to say thanks to their mother
That's
who
awesome.
works tirelessly on their behalf to enable our family to work the way that it does.
Oh yeah, my wife's. Oh my gosh. One thing with the aspects of what we do in our family is we read every night. So my wife
Sure,
will read
love it.
to the kids, and then I end up reading to the kids too. But three stories every night for 16 years,
That's great.
and it's been a blessing because like you see the fruits of your labor, right? Oh, like wow, I can't wait for Father's Day to come
For sure.
again, or my birthday or whatever, and they can do that. Well, yeah, see my kids reading, self-reading Harry Potter series three
For
times,
sure.
and all this, and it really has impacted their academics, their nice people
Yeah. Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
result
The
of
power,
reading and
the
knowledge
power of
and all.
reading. Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
we are as human beings, we're social creatures and social interactions obviously important, but we're blessed with this ability, with the facility to think and to reason. And we're a language is culture, culture is language. And
Yeah.
so we have always felt the same way. For us, it's music and the written word are the things you have to do in our house. You just have to.
Oh yeah, yeah. We
And we
have
all do it, and
music,
it's so helpful.
theater.
So it's great. Yeah.
Oh, it's wonderful. That's great. So we're obviously covering family bucket. What else is important that defines it for you even more so? I know we're still cruising here, but let's just like firm up even more what it is. Another thing for me in my family bucket is we go for family walks, and we usually
Hmm.
walk the dog. Anytime we go to Cleveland or anytime the kids can wiggle out, we usually do family ice cream together.
Sure. It's
That
always
was
fun.
something that I decided a long time ago that I was going to participate every time. I don't have ice cream any other time except in a family setting. I usually just get the small. The little boy inside says, "Get the largest kitchen sink sundae with all the toppings," right? But I say small. I usually get
Good
a
for you.
unique flavor that is different every single time. Just what the one of the most interesting, we're in Cape Cod area, and ginger was a flavor of ice cream.
Sure.
Like, sign me up, let's do it.
Let's
So
do it. Yeah, it's awesome.
how
Yeah.
about
So
you?
yeah. So for us, a lot of the similar things, to be honest, we're kind of in some ways we're a little bit strange relative to, I guess, maybe the norm, in
We
that when
all
we
are,
take
aren't we?
yeah, when we take family vacations, for us, it's usually like, hey, what state park or national park? How many can we get to on this trip? And
Yes.
so, most honestly,
Yes.
in most of our trips, they involve us going to a place, finding fun, interesting places to eat, and
Oh,
then finding
yes.
all the hiking we can possibly do in that area. Whether we're
Yep.
going, we've taken the kids internationally a number of times, and that's we're looking for the trails and we're looking for the weird places that only the locals generally know, and where you
Yeah.
can see the real folks living in the real area doing the real thing. But
Right.
largely being outside and moving and having a great
Yeah.
time enjoying experiencing
Yeah,
nature.
my wife's
And
a
and then
travel advisor, and totally agree. She has taken us all 50 states, multiple countries, continents, and
yeah,
stuff. So we seek out adventures and that authenticity in the place that we're at. So I absolutely love that. And you obviously you cherish the travel to be exposed to see other people and other cultures living other different ways than your little tiny like
your little bubble.
10-block radius or something.
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah, and yeah, obviously, the earlier you can expose your children to the rest of the world, the better, right? And
Yes.
yourself, for that matter, just because
Agreed.
it is such a big world, but it's also so small at the same time. And
Agreed.
we're all the same, just trying to make it, just trying to do what's right for our families and be good
Yes,
people.
I
You know.
love that. Yes,
Yeah.
my same experience. Joy. People are looking for joy-filled lives. They want
Yeah.
to be happy. They want to be around the people they love and be treated with love and kindness.
Yeah.
That's all
Exactly.
I've
And that
seen too.
that works whether you're talking specifically about your tribe, your home tribe, or your work tribe, right?
Yeah.
And then your city tribe and your national tribe. It's all connected, right?
Right.
It's all the same thing.
Right.
For the vast majority of us, we just want to do well while doing good. And
Yes.
it's possible to do that as long as we stay focused. And, in our family, my wife and I talk about this all the time because, I'm an entrepreneur by birth. I cannot not look at
You
something
shout out, let's start a business or let's get to you.
seriously, like to the point where, I mean, it's obnoxious, it's ridiculous. And
Yeah.
sometimes it gets me into all kinds of trouble because I inevitably talked way too much about business or ideas or this or that. And, oh,
Right.
we're doing this deal right now. And oh, look at this. I can't believe, and it gets a little bit
Yeah.
overwhelming at times.
Agreed.
But again, that's part of the entrepreneur's personality. I think sometimes we can be a little overwhelming because
Yeah.
we're visionary dreamers. Like, let's just go, let's climb that mountain. Uh,
Yes.
but one of the reason I sort of like want to segue into this is because, as you're raising your family, if you're building a business, well, that business is an extension of your family. It's an extension of your
Yes.
personal culture and your personal values. And so one of the things I've found along the way here, so I started and sold 4 software companies between '03 and 2020. And I've started some other businesses that are still operating today. And I have a venture capital fund. We invest and we are helping support lots of other companies doing great things. But there's so many similar bits and pieces of family culture that you can bring to your business to help you not connect the two because you need separation of church and state. Like, you do not want to bring your work problems home. I mean, we all have a
Right.
tendency to do that. It's impossible not to, I think.
Right.
But like being aware of it and trying to keep them out of the front and center situation,
Agreed.
I think is important. But that doesn't mean you can't bring and share some of the same value sets, and that you won't bring some of the same value sets and share them with your teams as you're trying to grow a business. For me, I found that focusing hard on culture early in the companies that I've started, and now that I invest in, it pays dividends every single time. So
Yeah, good. Those are the things that you're seeking out in those type of deals and relationships that you want to foster and then grow.
finding people that are of like mind and humble enough to know what they don't know and to ask for help, and ambitious and enough with just enough ego to be crazy enough to think they can go do it, right? Like
Right.
that's kind of the mix you're looking for as an investor,
Right.
or as a person building a business. You have to find that. Again, it comes down to this balance. How do
Right.
you find that balance? And of course, there is no such thing. It's this really
Right.
wobbly seesaw teeter totter thing you're sitting on all the time, but you're trying to make it work.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's super important, and that sort of notion of where family and work, values from family and work, then they bleed over into values for civic service that you can do, and ultimately all that bleeds into yourself, and helps reinforce who you are and helps you sort of refine and redefine yourself throughout your life as you need to, based on circumstance, situation, and
Hmm.
wants, needs, etc. So,
Right. Now with civic, let's define a little bit more. Maybe give an
sure.
example of what's important for your life in your civic bucket. What are you doing to pour into that one?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. So there are, I guess, as a kid, I was brought up in a household where we were always taught by my mom and my dad that giving back is not just important, but it's a requirement. Sort of this notion of where much is given, much is required. That sort of framework and ideology certainly permeated
Hmm.
our house. And so from the time I was a very young kid, we were taught, like, we're going, you give of yourself, you serve
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
people, because through
Great
serving other
value.
people, yeah, through serving other people, you really serving yourself, and you get so much joy and value out of helping others. And so I've been blessed to be able to grow up in a household, and then in our own household, where we do our best to give. And so for me, on the civic front, it's always been a big and important thing for me to try to get involved in things I'm passionate about. And so I've had
Yeah.
had the opportunity to, I guess it was for about a decade, I was very deeply involved in an organization called Help for Children, where we raised tens of millions of dollars while I was there. And now that I haven't been on the board there for 10 or 12 years at this point. I'm sure they've, tripled what they've raised in the past, but, tens of millions of dollars raised and then
Yeah.
given straight to organizations that are helping to combat and treat child abuse and neglect. That was a big thing for me.
Nice.
I've been part of organizations. There's a fabulous organization, for example, in Chicago called IC Stars, which is a big impact, low number of people at a time civic organization that focuses on creating life-changing social enterprise opportunities for tech workforce enablement and development in underappreciated, underserved, and undersupported areas within cities. And IC Stars is got branches all over the country. And so that was an example of civic service where, I was able to tie in my professional work, software
Right.
development, software engineering, software development, software sales into civic. Because I'm a technologist and have always been thinking about and looking at the latest and greatest trends in tech, I also have had the opportunity for, well, since 2003 to be pretty deeply involved in technology associations in the state of Illinois and in our region. So for a very long time, I was the vice chair and then the chair of an organization called the Illinois Technology Association. We had several thousand members, companies, all technology and tech-enabled services companies, which we were basically a service agency trying to help businesses to figure out how to grow their businesses, hire, fire, find capital, scale, all doing well while doing good for the communities in which those businesses were doing business. And ultimately, we took that organization and we merged it with an organization in Chicago called 1871, which is maybe one of the largest civic platforms in the world at this point that is focused on helping startups and growth stage companies and leading like Fortune 10 companies to explore ideas, build solutions, think about corporate innovation and entrepreneurship at every level of civic society and at every level of organization. So supporting people with an idea that want to think about starting a business through to supporting Google and Microsoft and companies that are obviously going to make it
Right.
and have
Right.
made it,
Right.
to be able to figure out, well, where's the next wave of talent? Where's the next wave of opportunity? How can we invest in our civic, in the communities in which
Right.
we work to drive more good? And then lastly, I know this is kind of a lot, but another
This is all
passion
great.
thing for me has always been the environment and ecology. I think one of the reasons that I like spending so much time outside is I've always been a hiker, a camper, a runner, a biker. I grew up in Colorado, and so in the
Oh,
mountains, best
yeah. So,
part.
yeah, I've been out there. It's
It's
beautiful.
great. And so, ecological restoration and environmental conservation and
Okay.
stewardship has always been important. So a number of years ago, I co-founded an organization called the Wilder World Trust, where we plow profits from one of our operating companies into this nonprofit, and we do environmental restoration work. So we pick sites and we go out and that are, post-industrial wastelands, and we slowly but surely, over 10 and 20 and 30-year periods, like we're converting them back into as pristine
Habitats
a
and
habitat as we can make based on the fact that, it's been disrupted and disturbed. And there's a
right.
heck of a lot of joy that comes from that, because there you're seeing not just the community be able to come out and enjoy authentic
Right.
nature and authentic
Right.
experiences and see wildlife and touch a tree and understand, get to learn about natives and
Right.
invasives and all kinds of fun stuff. But obviously, you see the animals and the plants and the life that comes back to
Right.
these places, and it's just
Right.
spectacular. So it's pretty
One
fun.
point on that is delayed gratification.
Yeah,
And
for
that is
sure.
something that, as a human, that you have to come to terms with. And in our society, we are broken and disconnected from delayed gratification of doing something, learning a skill, repeating it, and then getting to the outcome of skill mastery. It's like, why am I not a master in a day?
Yeah,
And so that just it kind of goes into a lot of any your story of yourself, of your work and your career, of building your family,
yeah,
of restoring in this type of a civic nature of finding ways to you call it temptation bundling, right?
yeah, yeah.
Find ways to bundle up
Totally.
delayed gratification so that we see joy, we experiencing happiness through doing productive things that
Yeah, and
bring
you see it
value to
over
people.
time. Yeah, for sure. That to me, that's one of the reasons to volunteer and to get involved in any cause. Like, it takes time to impact
Right.
things and
Right.
people and places, and it takes time to affect change. And so, like these restoration projects, they're 20-year plans. And
Yeah.
the one that's the furthest along for us right now is we're 6 years in, right? So there's 14 more years to go. But you
Right.
see season after season just how much changes bit by bit, right? And it's so these
Right.
small acts and small things that great things happen, just like building a business. It's the small acts, it's that one critical conversation
1%.
with a customer.
Yeah.
It's that one situation with your best employee that changes everything, right? And so being present in the moment now, but thinking about the long term impact of what you're doing, like it to me, again, it helps pull things together and keeps things in focus. So sometimes people will say, "Geez, Jeremy, you do a lot of things. Like, do you feel scattered?" And what's interesting is when I do a lot of things, but again, it's all focused on this family, work, civic, and self buckets. But everything I do is I intentionally connect it to something else, either because I want to learn more about a thing, or I try to recognize the parallels between industries or segments or categories. Well, I can learn a lot about managing teams and building teams and finding great people by spending time in the nonprofit world, by spending time in the academic world. I also teach at University of Chicago, and so you get all these wonderful ways to sort of, again, it's very selfish because you're learning and growing and getting
Right.
all these interesting experiences, but they just help to reinforce the things you really are trying to do. And if you can build this sort of fabric that lets you take the things you love and pull them together and work on them every day, in a way that's
Yeah.
moving your goals forward and your business forward, it's the best. It's not work, it's play. It's just you have fun all
Yeah.
day long
Yeah.
every day. It's great.
The word that comes to my mind is cross pollinate.
Sure. Yeah.
You're able to just pull from one thing or other, and then what happens when that happens? We get flowers, we get, you know, life that
Yeah.
comes from being able to see those capacities grow and connections grow. So
Exactly
that's really
right.
awesome. One thing
Yeah.
I was want to move into is the opening hook, right? We got to satisfy that one. We got to
Mm.
scratch that,
Yeah.
itch that scratch the itch there on how you even came up with these buckets in the first place, or why you have prioritized them so much. I believe you said that you even have them on your calendar, and they're color coded so that
Yep.
you can quickly, easily understand and see what the important focus is. So that and we also said this in our pre-call, was the best laid plans of mice and men often go astray, so that they
Totally.
don't go astray, and that you can stay focused, because again, attention and everything that's going on with this instant gratification type society that we're living is hard to balance. The Hey, we have a 20-year plan here,
Right.
we're only in 6, like this is what we said we were going to do, and we're just going to stay the line.
Totally. Well, one of the reasons why I do color code everything and I do look at it and manage it actively week to week to week is because I bucket out every single year and I say, how much time can I allocate to each of these buckets, right? How
Right.
much can I allocate to family, to work, to civic, and to self? And then every single week when I'm looking at my calendar and planning out the next few, I'm looking at things by those buckets and I'm keeping a running tab. So if I said I've got 300 hours this year for, cutting down invasive trees in the woods, that's what I'm going to do. Right. And
Yeah.
I'm going to schedule my time accordingly to find the time to make the time for 300 hours of cutting down trees in the woods. Right. And what's exciting is like that I use that as an example because in that case, that also helps me with myself because it's exercise, activity,
Right.
physical movement, hard movements, hard labor, right? So again, you're
Yeah.
temptation bundling, you're getting your exercise and your physical workout in while also doing a good thing. And so that for me, that's why it's so important to sort of bucket these things out and then say, well, shoot, where am I missing? And inevitably, when you do this and you look across, like you're going to find the thing that's missing, the thing that's getting underserved. And, for every one of those things, that thing's probably different. For some, it might be
Right.
family. For some, it might be self. For some, it might be civic. And for some, it might be
Right.
work. Right.
Right.
But you
I'll
do.
throw myself out here. Do a great job with family. The family first is a huge thing. Just pour into my family as much as possible. I do pour into work a lot too. Obviously, I pour into myself. I got up and ran 5 miles. I did a bunch of exercise yesterday, so and that bucket's pretty good. But civic and trying to allocate time toward doing things bigger than myself, and that's
Mhm.
part of say what I'm trying to do with my business, the call to rise, and working with men to help get their health bucket unlocked so
Yeah.
that they can go do bigger, powerful things. So that's that, but that would definitely be the weakest of the four for me personally.
Well, this thing we're all gonna have. There's no such thing as balance, right? Nor should there be,
Right,
right? Like it should be fractional based on what you do for professionally, right? What is your
right.
what is your calling in life? What are you doing? And I would argue that like the things you're doing, whether they're civic self-service or civic self or work, should all ultimately lead to that thing that
Hmm.
provides your livelihood to be better, right?
Right,
And that makes complete sense. So, you know, there are ways to there's always ways to try to look for balance, but again, I mean, I don't have balance in my life,
right.
and
Yeah, me neither.
sometimes no one does, and I don't think it's real, and that's
No,
okay.
it's
I
not.
think that's part of the fun is the pursuit of, right, the pursuit of happiness, the pursuit of balance. It's all really the same thing at the end of the day.
Yeah, totally. So let's take us back to that conversation with the billionaire
Yeah,
that really reshaped some of thoughts on success for you.
for sure. So it was interesting. The context there too was I was talking with this person about managing their private investment pool. And he had, at the time I was starting another software company, and he's like, well, I don't really want to fund your software company, but would you be interested in coming in here and managing our venture capital portfolio for us? And for listeners that don't know what venture capital is, basically, in this context, you might have heard of venture capital funds, right? Dedicated funds, pool capital to go invest in early stage companies. Every company is not every company is a venture backable business, but lots of them are. And every company starts out taking in outside money, generally, whether it's from friends and family or from venture capital funds. But very, very wealthy families generally will set up what's called a family office, and that's how they manage their wealth. It's a business that literally takes care of their money for them and helps them to invest it, to make sure that it doesn't just get blown. And so anyway, and within a family office, they'll typically have a bucket of the capital they're going to invest directly into private companies, whether it's through a private equity structure or a venture capital structure. So anyway, that's what he was asking me if I wanted to do. I was like, well, that's an honor, and obviously it would be amazing to be able to do this for you, but I don't want to do this for you. And so I gracefully, I think, turned down the opportunity. And when he said, well, why would you not want to do this? Like, I've got so much money, you could do a great thing here and do really well yourself. And I said, well, honestly, the reason that I'm not interested in this particular role is because I've been investing myself now at that point for over 10 years, have my own little vehicle, doing private investments in venture capital. I was like, look, I don't want to work for you. I'm going to make my own. I'm going to do it myself. And that's what I've been working toward. And so, like, as much as I'd love to help you out, like,
it's like the 20-year plan and you're on year 6.
Correct. My plan is, and at the time it was, that by 2020, I was going to start spending most of my time as an investor. And this is in 2015 when we had this conversation. And sure enough, by 2020, then I had my plan was in place, and I'm spending most of my time on not just building my own companies. I still have companies that I'm very deeply involved with, but helping others to build theirs as an investor. And so that was sort of the context for that conversation. But it was was really humbling to hear him say that, he thought he had chosen wrong, because you can't do 25% across 4 buckets. You cannot do it, right? You have to pick and you have to choose. And he had said, he felt he had chosen poorly because, for 40 years, he chose work, self at the oftentimes at too much of a.
If you would say, just say percentage wise, obviously this is just self assessing, but out of 100, where would you put his percentage of the work and self, in a sense, compared to family and civics? Obviously, this is from the outside looking in. This is just from a relationship. So just want to get those contexts out here before you.
Yeah,
but I'm just curious, because this is something that you're trying to get, not necessarily 25% across the board, but probably within a 20 to 40% across the board. So that is relatively balanced for you. So I'm just curious how you'd rate it for him.
Yeah. So I would be willing to bet that he was probably just absolutely vast majority on work.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he's working, let's say he worked 60 hours
$1 billion or whatever, like this, a lot.
Yeah. I'm going to guess he probably worked a 60 to 70 hour work week, like most people who run a business. And, he started his business in the mid 1980s, maybe late 80s, maybe it was 88, 89 when he started that company. And he sold it, bought it back, and then sold it again by 2010. And that's where he hit the $1 billion number, is maybe 2010, 2011, something like that on the exit. And so, most of his life, right, the entire time he's having children, raising children. So, and he said, our nannies raised our kids. And I didn't see them. I was gone like 5 and 6 days of the week for years at a time. So, again, and they, for what it's worth, and to be totally clear, like, he had come when he finally realized, oh my gosh, like, I really wanted to be a better dad. Like, he put in the work and put in the time and put in the effort. And he was very much doing so when I met him. It's one of the reasons why I was trying to outsource this role. right? Like,
Right.
because he wanted to spend much more time with his kids. But he missed the little league soccer and baseball games, and he missed
Yeah.
the middle schools and the high schools and
Changing
the early
diapers
college and stuff.
as much as
Yeah.
they're fun. I mean, it is part of the process of
Yeah,
being a
missed
parent.
all that. And so
Yeah.
ended up building a good relationship with his kids, but it's different, it's a different kind of
Oh, yeah,
relationship.
yeah. You don't
So,
have
yeah.
that youthful nostalgia or
Yeah,
memories of just being in the backyard playing with your father.
totally. Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
you ask what, so how do I bucket my time when I think about like family, professional, civic, and self? Like I break it down by like literally hours of the week. So there's 168 hours ish in the
Okay.
week to like eat, sleep, drink, work out, have fun time with your family, go to work, et cetera, et cetera. And so the self hours, when you consider the fact that sleep has to be part of your self hours, like that is the biggest bucket, always has to be, because you're
Right.
sleeping for 8 hours a day, right? If you're
Yes.
doing your best,
Right.
7 or 8 hours a day. And
If you
so
want the ROI on sleep
you got to
and
be
its a capacity and productivity, you
right.
do need so like 8 hours, 7 to 8 hours minimum,
That's
or
exactly right.
it won't work.
So the way amen. And so the way I break mine down is in my current block of 5 years, I spend 65 hours a week on me.
Hold
That's
on, real quick. I just want to.
yeah.
You said 5 years in his
Yeah.
current block of 5 years. So I
Yeah.
just want to
Yeah.
call that out because most people are thinking about in the day that they're awake,
Um,
and you're zoomed out that much. So just if you're listening in, put that in your brain. Okay, in a 5 year time frame, you can do a crazy amount of whatever you put your mind to and
yes.
put a little bit of elbow grease into. So I just wanted to call you out on that.
No,
Well
yeah. Well,
done for
thanks
that.
for hitting that. I should have opened with that probably. So I do plan my life in blocks of 5 years. And there's a 5 year plan, and then and along the way you're changing it, revising it, figuring out like what you're going to do for the next 5 year block, right?
Right.
And that's the way I've always been wired. And so, in the current 5 year block, my self hours per week are 65 hours. So it's 8 hours of fitness a week. I'm not doing ultra marathons anymore. I'm not doing like the
Sure.
big crazy stuff anymore. So 8 hours of fitness a week, 1 hour of friend time. Everyone needs friends,
Yep.
but I'm blessed because I work with a lot of people with whom I'm
Right.
very
You have a
close,
lot
and
of
so
social network there.
most of my friend time falls into the professional bucket, to be totally
Yeah.
blunt and blatant about it.
Right.
But the friend time I do make is for people I wouldn't necessarily get a chance to work with, right? Or I'm not friend work friends with. If that makes sense. And then
Yeah. Yeah.
sleeping 56 hours a week, you have to. So that's 65
Right.
hours of my life every single week. For me, civic and service, that's 10 hours a week of my life. And then professional hours is 63 hours a week is what I allocate to my working time, which leaves me 30 hours a week of family time. And so, and where family time breaks down as meals together, hanging out
Right.
together, taking walks together, watching TV
Right.
together, just playing a silly game together, just having fun, right?
Right.
So it's a decent amount. I'm at 17, if I do the math, 17.85 ish percent
Right.
of my time is with my family.
Right.
37 and a half is with work. Okay. 39% ish is me going to sleep and
Right.
eating and stuff. And then, and then civic is 6-ish% of my time.
Right. Just
In,
saying too, we can hear we can hear the business
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and the numbers and time, the digits, and you can
Yeah.
tell you've been in software and stuff. It's just funny.
Yeah. There's a P&L here somewhere. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. KPIs for ROIs. That's a
Mhm.
popular phrase I use a lot, and
Totally.
totally is where we're at here. So that's excellent. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
So it does, but I mean, all joking aside, it does come down to this notion of like measuring what matters, right? Like
Right.
if you're not measuring it, you're not going to do it. It's just plain and simple. So if you don't set it down, put it on paper, look at it every single day or every single week, at least you're not
Yeah.
ever going to get there.
What gets
Just like you're
tracked
never
gets
going to get your
measured.
business where you want it to be if you're not doing it. So like maybe it's a little bit extreme, but like it's actually, to me, it's like, well, of course you have to do this. If you want to achieve anything, you have to be meticulous. Because then going back to something you said a minute ago, you also have to choose what to say no to. So when you know like
Yeah,
what your
power no.
calendar looks like I got 4 requests yesterday alone from stuff that I'm like, I'm sorry, can't. Call me in literally 9 months and maybe it'll fit into the bucket, but I can't do it now.
Right.
I won't do it now because then I'm
Right.
gonna miss out on the more important things
Right.
for right now, right? Based on where
Yeah.
the plan is. So
That's huge. That's
yeah,
huge.
yeah,
There's two more things in that I want to go over. One
sure,
with from our pre-call was why managing massive wealth is often a burden, not actually freedom, because
yeah,
oftentimes so many guys are so heavy leverage and the success is tied to work or
yeah,
financial. And that's
yeah,
something that the one reason for this whole podcast is to find balance and put yourself as a more of a priority. So then you're taking care of yourself to then be able to spend time with your family
Right.
and everything else. So then there's that, and then redefining success. Happiness is not tied to a number in the bank, but the quality of the life that you lead. So let's start
100%.
with the massive wealth burden thing, and move into what happiness should look like, not tied to a number.
Or could, yeah. So for a little bit of context, for the first 20 years of my career, I spent most of my professional time working with or building software platforms for managing vast amounts of wealth.
Yeah.
And so as a result of that,
You're around a
I
lot
was
of wealthy
exposed
people.
to a lot of wealthy people. And so we mentioned this concept of family offices before, right? So
Yeah.
when you think about like money, there are everyone that has a dollar saved in the bank is an asset owner, right? You own a physical asset. Now you might have more debt than equity, and therefore you might, you might have a negative net worth, might have negative net value, but like everyone that has investable assets is an asset owner. Asset owners own everything at the end of the day, because why? The way our system works, if I have money, I give it to you to build a productive asset, to make something happen. Like we're creating economic value, et cetera, et cetera. So we want to be asset owners, right? Everyone should think about every day, how do I become an asset owner? Because there's safety in owning assets. There's safety in owning the means of production, right? If you don't own the means of production, you own absolutely nothing, zero. And you are not going to be able to build multi-generational or even generational wealth. So you have to figure out how to own assets that have value. But for some people, they've managed to do this and they have amassed very large sums of money, right? Because they've either started a business that went exceptionally well and they sold it, or they maybe have been born into it, or they may have won the lottery, right? However you got it, if you get to a certain point, you have enough, you need to think about, how am I managing this responsibly to accomplish my goals, my vision? In my case, for family, work, civic, and self. In your case, might be something different, right? Whatever buckets are important to you. But it becomes really important. You start thinking about how you manage this stuff and how you bucket it in a way that protects it where you're protecting yourself from yourself, and importantly, your children and your children's children from their weakest impulses. Right? A lot of people, when you don't grow up around money, I didn't. I grew up not with nothing. Nothing significant, and when typical middle class family and blah blah blah. But when you don't know what it is, you don't know how to use it. So that was a long preamble to say, like, when you do have it, it becomes a really, really, really big responsibility to manage it appropriately. Because there's three things you can do with the money, right? One, you can blow it all, right? You can just buy stupid stuff and spend it, which happens all too often on dumb material.
Instant gratification.
Totally, exactly. You can stick it all, you can save it all and then do nothing with it, right? Put it all in T-bills or whatever and just say, great, I'm just going to live off some interest or whatever, which is also a travesty. Or you can allocate travesty because it's not doing the most good, either for you or for society.
Just a medium vehicle of monetary gain at best.
Correct, exactly. And that's wonderful. It serves you, but it doesn't necessarily serve the broader good. And so, or you can do you can do the optimal thing, which is allocate it appropriately across a whole bucket of assets, right? Including private companies and public companies. So, but in doing that, like what happens is, you end up in a situation, if you end up in a situation where you're lucky enough to have $1 billion, everyone knows it and everyone wants something from you, right? And so building software companies that were servicing family offices, people with huge amounts of money, like I would always have these conversations where like, man, having a lot of money kind of sucks because you no longer know who your friends are, right? Because everybody wants something from you. Everybody sees you as a prospective investor in their startup idea. Everyone sees you as someone who can afford to give them a handout. Not everyone, because not everyone's built that way, but you get my point. Like a lot of people, everyone's always got an angle, right? And so it becomes really difficult to know. The other thing that happens is, families grow, right? So like I have 4 kids. There's 6 of us in my family. If each of my kids get married, and if each of my kids get married and has a kid or 2 or 3 or 4, right, before you know it, by the time their kids are having kids, like the family gets very, very big, right? And so there's this traditional, there's a ton of research, you can go pull in this and read about it and see it. But like most family wealth is created in generation 1. Mom and dad work really, really hard, right? They sacrifice, they scrape, they make something, right? Let's say like in today's day and age, they work their butts off and they're lucky enough that when they pass, they've left $10 to $25 million for their kids, let alone $1 billion, right? But like a bunch of money. Well, then generation two says, geez, I saw how hard mom and dad worked, right? They worked really hard. I have to steward this. I have to protect it. I cannot waste it. And so they're generally really good about taking the 25, let's say the 10, let's say whatever the number is, and double, triple, quadrupling it, right? And then so say your kids end up, your estate's worth $100 million, right? Well, then by Gen 3, you got enough people, gold diggers start to find their way in, people who are like manipulating your family, and you start to see like the foundation starts to get a little shaky, right? Because Gen 3 knows grandma and grandpa, but like, we're all loyal to our grandparents.
No stories or,
right? By Gen 4, right. By Gen 4, it's just money, right? And how much of it can I get? And how much can outsiders get? And so what you see is there's a cycle of money, right? Like Gen 1, 2, 3, and usually it starts to fall apart in 4. And by Gen 5, it's gone. And you're back to Gen 6 starts over. Some families have figured out ways to go from Gen 1 through Gen 10. There's a family I'm friendly with that's on generation 10, right? Oh. And their wealth is staggeringly crazy, huge amounts of money. They've managed to do it because they were very smart and planful from day one. Also, nobody knows they have the money. And so they've managed to sort of build this massive amount of wealth that actually is invested in the economy, directly providing jobs, giving access to resources, doing all kinds of wonderful things.
Right.
And, in my opinion, that's the way you do it. But it's a burden for these people. I used to have one of them come and give us a presentation to one of my companies where, the title of his slide deck was why it sucks to be a billionaire. And because, no one thinks it sucks to be a billionaire.
No, it's a moment. Yeah, not it. Right.
You got a target on your back, right? Everyone's always coming out for a piece of it, right? So, and expects that because you got $1 billion, like, sure, you can afford 100,000 here. You can give me $5. You can give me $1 million there. What's it to you? It's nothing.
If you're a billionaire, 100,000 is like a penny, right?
Yeah, you're making that much an hour, right? But how you allocate that much every single hour is what matters. It's also why if you achieve that level of wealth and you don't have a plan and you don't have structure, it's pointless. It's meaningless, right? And it doesn't bring happiness. That's why the happiest people, whether they've got $100 in the bank or $1 billion in the bank, are the people who have a purpose for that money, right? What they're doing with it, what good is it serving? So if it's not serving any good, then it's worthless, right? It's like swine, pearls before swine. It means nothing. So,
right. And ultimately, we go back to the second point: is how do we redefine success so that happiness is what you're allocating all your buckets of life toward with the common good. So for me, about 23 years in, it's always been filtered toward helping people self-improve through weight, through chronic illness, performance gains, through people are like, are you sure you just talk about nutrition or whatever? Like you feel like your life coach here, Brian. I'm like, yeah, I wear many hats and I'm like a Swiss Army knife, Rambo style, because of just sheer volume of conversations, interactions with people to help them move through whatever challenges that they have. So it's always been this, I like to think of it as an ethical way of making money, of helping people self-improve. And ultimately that's what any business should be. In terms of offering that value for monetary gain.
For sure. Yep. No, there has to be a higher purpose, right? Transactional relationships are not healthy.
No, not usually.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They will take and take and take.
Exactly
now, a core message that we had: what are you giving up to get what you think you want? As another core question that you'd thrown out there.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's important to, there's a lot of things going on in my head in real time as I'm thinking about it. What are you giving up to get what you want or to get what you need? I think the answer to that question, and probably the way that you frame that, for me anyway, the answer to that question and the way that I frame it to myself changes all the time.
Sure.
Because partly, it depends on which bucket you're talking about, right? It depends on which cycle you are in which bucket with what thing you're doing, right, at the time, which sounds kind of convoluted and crazy. But like, there are some things that some choices that you can make that you need to give a heck of a lot of thought and a heck of a lot of attention to, because they'll have major ramifications on that plan. In my case, on a 5-year plan, right? A bucket within a 5-year plan. And so the proactively deciding what I'm going to give up today to get what I think I want based on my plan in 2, 3, and 4 years is an exercise I go through in my weekly and biweekly scheduling of
Hmm.
my time.
Right.
So, I'll sort of, there's a wonderful Japanese proverb. I said it's Chinese and Japanese. Actually, I'm not quite sure which country came up with it first. It goes
Sure.
back to both like thousands of years ago. But the story is it's called Sayo ga Uma. It means Mr. Sai's horse. Okay,
Okay.
and it's a wonderful story, a wonderful parable. And basically, here's what it is. So one day, Mr. Sai, right, who's living he's a farmer, a peasant farmer in the countryside. His horse runs away. And the folks in his neighborhood and in the village say, "Oh my gosh, Mr. Sai, that's terrible. You've lost your horse. What a terrible situation. I hope you're gonna. This is awful." And he's like, "Well, yeah, maybe it's good luck. Maybe it's not good luck. I don't know. We'll find. We'll have to see what happens. We'll take it
Right.
as it
Right.
comes." 2 days later, the horse comes running back into the village, right? And it brings another horse that it had found out in the wild, right? And so everyone jumps up and down and screams, Mr. Sai, Mr. Sai, oh my gosh, what great fortune you've had. Your horse ran away and he came back with a second. Now you're a rich man in the village because you have two horses." And he's
Right.
like, "Yeah, maybe, maybe not. We'll have to see." Not more than a week goes by. His son is a teenage son's riding on one of the horses out in the woodlands, having a good time, and he gets bucked off and he falls and he breaks his leg. And sure enough, he's brought back into the village, and the villagers all say, "Oh my gosh, Mr. Sai, your fortune is so terrible. How sad your son was hurt and broke his leg from this horse that wasn't yours that came in, to live with you." And he's like, "Yeah, maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. I don't know. We'll have to see how it goes."
Right.
And then a week later, the shogunate with the samurai shows up and says, "Hey guys, we're conscripting all of the young men to come fight in this feudal war." And Mr. Sai's son, because he has a broken leg, can't go. And so he's spared the life of a soldier and spared probably, sure death in battle. And so again, everyone in the village says, "Oh my gosh, what great fortune that your son fell off that horse that came into the village from nowhere and he broke his leg." And Mr. Sai says, "What? I don't know. Maybe it's lucky. Maybe it's not," right? The point being, we have absolutely no idea
No.
what is coming down the pike ever, no matter how much we plan, no matter how smart we are, no matter how cool we are. We have
Hmm.
no idea what today is going to bring, let alone tomorrow or a year from now or 2 years from now. So the best we can ever do is sort of take what comes to us based on what we're putting out there, and do our best to leverage it and take advantage of it to hopefully to steer our ship in the direction we're trying to go. And so that's a very long-winded way of saying it means every single day we have to think about, well, what am I giving up today for what I want in 2, 5, and 10
Hmm.
years? And is it the right thing? Right.
Right.
And it might feel like
Right.
the right thing absolutely right now. And if you have that conviction, then you should act on that conviction. But you can never quite know. You can never be totally certain
Right.
that you're making the right choice.
Right.
All you can do is hope you're making the right choice and giving up what you want right now for what you think you might want or think you might get down the road for it. But it's also why, to me, being mindful of, my world, the 4 buckets is so important, because I can always sort of weigh in my head, well, this thing I'm going to do or not do right now, today or tomorrow, how is it going to impact my ability to perform for my family, for my colleagues, for my
Hmm.
civic responsibilities, and for myself.
Right. Right. That's a wonderful story. And you're right. You don't know, you can't assign a value to something that happened to you at this time because you don't know what's in the future and
No
how that
idea.
impact is going to have on your life. And obviously, in these sequencing of situation, we look backwards, it had evolved to saving the son's life, but it might not have worked out that way as well. There could have been something else
Exactly
that
right.
happened. But that's just the power of being present when you're current situation, being intentional with what you are doing with the time, the energy, the resources that you have, and going back to the 4 buckets being so important to have this somewhat of a balance. And I guess if someone is not strong in a bucket or they're
Mhm.
too lopsided, what's the advice there to help to start to create more balance so that we are present and we are intentional with our time, energy, effort, resources that we have now?
Yeah. In my opinion, what I try to force myself to do is stop and think and sort of evaluate, what am I doing? And so sometimes,
Right.
again, this is where like having people who love you around you is so important. Like just the other day, my wife slapped me across. She didn't literally slap me, but she gave me a
Right.
bonk on the head, not a literal one, a figurative one, an emotional one, a
Right.
verbal one, where she's like, "Dumb, dumb, wake up," right?
Yeah.
And that forces, when that happens, it forces me to say, oh, hold on a second. Like, am I getting out of whack here? What am I doing that I'm even aware of that's causing me
Right.
to sort of fail in this bucket more than normal? Right.
Right.
And so,
Right.
I'd say, like, listening to out, like, putting yourself in a position where you can accept, and you have people who care enough to, like, say, dude, is this what you're trying to accomplish? Is this getting you where you're trying to go? So to do that, you have to have shared these goals, right? You have to have people you can trust to say, this is my 5-year plan. This is how it works. This is why I'm doing this. This is this, and
Mm-hmm.
this. So I know that, believe me, there's a method to the madness. How do you feel about that? Are we bought in, especially with our spouses? Like, are you bought into this vision? Because if you're not, then I'm
Yeah.
going to change it, right? And you got to let me know,
Right.
because I need to
Right.
make sure that it fits both of our lifespans, both of our lifestyles, both of our
Right.
perspectives, and that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I think
Right.
just stopping and thinking about it is the best way to reevaluate. Like, go, hold on, is this going to get me where I'm trying to go? What is my goal in 2, 3, and 5 years?
Right.
And if I don't have a goal for 2, 3, 5 years, then that's problem number one. Like, you need to have one.
Right. You need to
And
know
so
where you're
stop
headed.
everything and figure it out. Otherwise, you're
Yeah.
just, like, flailing, right? And then you're going to drown, and it's not going to be good. Yeah.
Right. No.
You'll end up like I did in 2000 and early 2003, weighing 50 pounds more than you should, being like, what's going on? Like, what am I really doing here? What's my purpose?
Right. Right. And you feel very disconnected to yourself
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
out of body like experience. Like this is not me or how I want to define myself or show up for
Totally.
myself or others in the space that I'm in
That's
and the
right.
things that I'm doing. Goodness, this has been great. I've really appreciated this conversation and understanding the key takeaway for me, saying going back to some of the buckets are last night's an example. Ended up my second son Everett. He invited a bunch of his middle school friends over. I don't know. All I saw was he was over there and he had 11 ladies in the pool hanging out with him and stuff. I was like, dude, this guy is lady killing it. And they're
Uh-oh.
all just close friends but they all love him. Like they just really appreciate who he is and everything. And I got to say something to my oldest Levi. I said, dude, did you see your brother? He had like a dozen ladies
That's
just
funny.
hanging out with him and just having a good time.
Well,
But
I'm sure he's a gentleman and respectful, which
very
is
much so.
why they like being with them, right? It's a good
Exactly.
time.
This guy is, oh my God, he's got so many skills. Like he cut my hair, like he bakes bread, he sews. He's his own tailor. He's 6'4", so no jeans fit him. So he just starts making his own. He's gifted in theater and singing and visual arts and stuff. So he's just got smart. He's got straight A's, so like whatever, and all these things. So he definitely people see the value that he brings into their orbit and stuff, and it's really cool to just see this. But so that happened last night, and all I saw in my brain was a lot of open time to work, but I had to spend time to facilitate this party for him. We had to go to the grocery store to buy goods and foods and such. I had to make a fire. I had to tend the fire. I had to tend cleaning and getting food and all this stuff. And so I wasn't able to, in my brain, work. And I had to put that to passer for the rest of the day. It's like, I'm not going to work. So I'm just going to enjoy. And I just soaked in all of, and then old Levi brought his friends over. So he had 4 other friends over. So it was just, there's like 20 kids in our backyard, a fire, pool, hot tub. I wake up tonight, I walk out and there's little hugs, the canister
They look,
barrel things
yeah,
of them. They're
yeah.
everywhere. It's like just little hugs everywhere
That's
that I
cute.
get to clean up. But it's just joy and understanding like family and why that's important to me and stuff. So
That's great.
um,
Well, I'm glad you got to have that experience. That's awesome. It's fun to
yeah,
see the
yeah,
kids in
yeah.
the wild.
Pretty fun. So
Hmm.
wrapping up here, Jeremy, you bring a lot of really good value here. We've got a couple buckets that we have to focus on in our everyday life. And when we stop, we take time to think about it in a 5-year plan to map that out, at least have grossly understand, hey, this is where I'm at. This is where I want to be here in the next couple of years. And these are the itemized things. If we just play backwards and create a blueprint to work it from where I want to be at and where I'm at now, what do I need to learn, grow, understand? Who do I need to be surrounded with? Like all these skills and things that need developed. That's what we need to do. And then periodically you have to have people close to you to call you out to make sure that you're staying on track. You yourself, most importantly, have to stay on track. We have to have focus on delayed gratification as we go through this process, and skip the and abandon the instant and say no to the things that take you off course. And so often that happens in every area of these buckets of health, of work, of family, and civic opportunities, that we get sidetracked by the squirrel, the woman in the red dress, so to speak, and that throws off your plan. So we always have to find time to pull back into the reins and understand what are the sacrifices of today to create the opportunities of tomorrow, so that you truly
100%.
experience joy, happiness, and wealth, not in terms of money, but wealth in terms of life, in this journey that we call life together.
Yes, 100%. Wealth and health, right? Like wealth is
Yep.
what you define it. Health is easy, more easy to define, but
Yeah.
you got to know what you want to get. You got to know what you're going to do to get it, and you got to get out there and then go do it, and have the
Yeah.
people around you that can support you in getting that thing, right? And then you got to reciprocate. So
Yes.
supporting those around you in the exact same way they're supporting you back,
Right.
where you can, how you can.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Where can they find you? What do you want to give to the audience? How do
Yeah.
we get more Jeremy in your life?
Well, how do you get what? That's a great question. There's a few hours a week that I have allocated to. Just kidding. But easiest place to find me is the internet generally. But if people want to reach out and chat, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on my website. It's a super simple
Okay.
one pager, just jeremiebacon.com. But yeah, I'm always happy to connect with
All right.
folks and share ideas and share
And
thoughts.
who are you specifically looking to connect with?
So I spend a lot of my time because I'm an investor, right? I spend a ton of time with what was seed and pre-seed companies. My focus is traditionally on what I would call sort of deep tech, hard tech stuff around embodied AI, physical AI, biohybrid AI, and then cybernetics. And I call it
Hmm.
acceleration infrastructure, but the tools and the picks and shovels that are being designed, built, and ultimately implemented to help enable the next wave of and really the future of human health span and lifespan. So
Yep.
anyone that's looking at or playing in those arenas is I'd love to chat with them for sure.
Okay.
That's
Perfect.
neuroscience through to complicated energy systems, but to power all kinds of great stuff. But generally too, the like I said, I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm always happy to share ideas and thoughts with people if they just have even questions about their own business, whether it's a startup software company or it's a rug importer. Like business is business at the end of the day.
Hmm. Yeah. Business is ultimately, yeah, business is business, and you run one like you run them all if you want to be successful and productive. So excellent. Well, everything will be in the show notes, and you can click down there to find them. And Jeremy, I really appreciate our conversation today, and
Thanks,
just a
Brian. Me too.
reminder of life is multiple things that we need to be focusing on, and finding balance as best you can, and then take it there, and be present, be intentional, and live a happy life. So,
Absolutely.
well, thank you so
Thank,
much, everyone. Off we go. Have a wonderful day. We'll catch you next one.
thank you.